Good evening, Mayor Allen. You do have quorum on camera and it is 6:30, so you may start the meeting when you're ready.
Thank you. Can I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? Councillor Maud Chapman, Councillor Moore, that the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater of September 15, 2021 come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Due to COVID, Council is taking the necessary steps to limit in-person meetings. As such, we are participating through Zoom electronically for the meeting of Council and staff. You can watch the meeting live on the Township's website at www.springwater.ca. You can listen to it during the meeting on a telephone by dialing 647-558-0588 and using the meeting ID 831-9085-5874. This option is available only during the meeting. And if you want to watch the meeting streaming, you can watch the video on the Township's YouTube channel. Council, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest tonight? Seeing none. Can I have a mover and seconder to call the public meeting session to order, please? Councillor Cabral and Councillor Moore. That this public meeting of council held under Section 34 of the Planning Act for application ZB 2021-10 Willow Creek Baptist Church be called to order at 6:32 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Welcome to this public meeting of the Springwater Township Council, held in compliance with Section 34 of the Planning Act to give the public an opportunity to express their views in regard to proposed amendments to the Township of Springwater zoning bylaw as amended. The first part of this meeting is to present the amendment. Following, the public will be given an opportunity to make an oral submission through Zoom application. Any person wishing to make an oral submission must have notified the Township prior to 8:30 a.m. this morning and must have been added to the commenters list. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Township of Springwater in respect of a zoning bylaw amendment does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions to the Township of Springwater before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss all or part of the appeal. All comments or questions should be addressed through myself as chair. Oral submissions will be included in this meeting's minutes and form part of the public record, including the name and address of the speaker, as information collected under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. The minutes of the meeting will be posted on the Township's website. Now, tonight we're dealing with ZB 2021-10 by Willow Creek Baptist Church of 2387 Gill Road. I will now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates on which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 25th day of August 2021 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 10 properties in the Township of Springwater within 120 meters of the area to which the proposed amendment would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was also posted at the assessed properties to which the proposed amendment applies at locations visible from Huron Street and Stokes Drive. The notice was also placed on the Township's website.
Has the Planning Department received any correspondence in response to the notice of the public meeting?
No correspondence has been received.
I will now call upon Planner Belcour to give presentation outlining the purpose and effect of this proposal.
Thank you, Your Worship. Let me just get my screen to share here. One moment. Can you all see that screen now?
You can, thank you.
Okay, the Township of Springwater has received, one second here, I can't click on the right spot. There we go. Sorry about that. The Township of Springwater has received an application for zoning bylaw amendment submitted by Willow Creek Baptist Church. The applicant is proposing an amendment to the existing site-specific institutional exception I-7 zone on the property to permit an addition, which would result in an exceedance of the maximum lot coverage provision for the property under bylaw 5000. A maximum lot coverage of 15% is being requested, whereas section 30.4.7 permits a maximum of 10%. The increased lot coverage is needed to facilitate the proposed 791.98 square meter addition, which will allow the church to add a gymnasium, new kitchen, washrooms, and meeting space to support church-related activities. Further, the aging portable classrooms, which currently reside on the site, would be removed with the construction of the new addition. Site plan control is applicable, and the applicant has also applied to amend the existing site plan. There are a few members of the trustees of Willow Creek and the engineering team on this meeting tonight. Should they wish to add anything further, or should council have any questions for them? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who've registered to ask questions or make comments regarding the application.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There are no commenters registered to make an oral submission in regard to this application tonight.
Okay. Do any members of council have questions or comments regarding this application? Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I guess I just would like to know, with respect to the runoff there, given the location of Willow Creek Church and the amount of asphalt and the buildings and whatnot, how that's going to be looked after or addressed moving forward.
Planner Belcourt?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Cabral. As noted, the applicant will be required to go through the site plan approval process, and drainage is one of the things that our engineering team is reviewing. We have not received formal engineering comments through the site plan review to date. I know that Inley Group is working to draft those, but I may direct this, if I may, to Rob Knight from Ted Handy, who might have some further comments, as he is the engineer on the file.
Thank you, Mr. Knight.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Yes, to Brianna's point, the engineer that we have retained, it has reviewed the stormwater report, and we will resolve. We're confident that we can manage the runoff, but as Brianna has stated, we'll resolve the details of that through the engineering, the site plan approval process. Does that answer your question, Councillor Cabral? Thank you.
Yes, he's shaking his head. Other questions, comments, council? Okay, seeing none, thank you to all who participated in the public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and for showing interest in this matter. Can I have a mover and seconder to adjourn this public meeting, please? Councillor Maude Chapman, Deputy Mayor Coughlin, that this public meeting of council held under Section 34 of the Planning Act for application ZB 2021-10 Willow Creek Baptist Church does now adjourn at 6:39 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay. Directions following the public meeting. Can I have a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Mon, Councillor Moore. That council, having held a public meeting in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 P13 as amended on ZB 2021-10 Willow Creek Baptist Church, having noted correspondence and input received, direct that the application be referred back to staff. All those in favor? That is carried. Next, we have a deputation presentation by Smith Brothers Baseball and the Central Ontario Reds business and plans for moving to Springwater. I will now call upon Kirby Smith and Kelly Barrow Smith to make their presentation, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Tonight, it will actually be myself and my husband, Kirk Smith. Unfortunately, my son Kirby could not join us. Our intention tonight is just to give council a little brief introduction to who we are and what we're planning to do. So I'm just going to share a PowerPoint with you. If you bear with me a minute. Can everyone see that?
We can, thank you.
Okay, so we're Smith Brothers Athletics. We have two divisions, the Central Ontario Reds and Smith Brothers Baseball Central. Smith Brothers Baseball Central started about 10 years ago. We had a facility in New Lowell in Clearview Township. It was a 12,600 square foot facility. We did all sorts of private lessons, camps, clinics, showcases, and events. We had various Toronto Blue Jays come and do events there with us. We offered golf and much more. The Central Ontario Reds program we started in 2014. We train and have teams of young athletes from the ages of 11 right up until 18. We do personalized training. We focus on confidence and discipline. We do tournaments in the States. We participate in the Fergie Jenkins League. We prepare kids for college and university, and we develop all the fundamentals with these players. Smith Brothers' mission is to provide the residents of Simcoe County and surrounding areas a year-round recreational facility to provide quality baseball training and instruction, as well as creating a positive culture around physical activity, wellness, and recreation. Our vision is to be the #1 indoor baseball and sports facility in Simcoe County by providing a positive atmosphere for training and consistently developing the confidence and skills of athletes and residents. In the end, providing a healthy lifestyle for those within the community. The Central Ontario Reds, our mission is through the teaching of skill development and sportsmanship. Our goals are to provide a positive environment which shall encourage individual growth as well as learning the importance of cooperation through being a part of a team. In the end, developing players to succeed in both baseball and life. And our vision is to develop young athletes to grow into respectful and responsible adults by expanding their skill sets to play at the next level while improving baseball in both Ontario and Canada. I'm introducing you to the board of directors. So our oldest son, Kirby Smith, is the president of Central Ontario Reds. He's also an instructor at Smith Brothers Baseball Central. He's been coaching baseball for 10 years, working with kids from 6 years old right up to the collegiate level. He's played for 22 years. He played 3 years of elite ball with Oakville Royals in high school. He then went down to Irving, Texas to play college baseball. He played 1 year with the Melville Millionaires out in Saskatchewan. He has coached full-time with the Reds now for 5 years and Smith Brothers. He was the assistant coach for Laurentian University in 2018, played for Laurentian University in 2019 and 20, and he's currently just starting a position as the head coach for Laurentian University baseball currently. They have their first game tonight. That is why he could not join us. He's ran spring training trips with our Central Ontario Reds for 6 years, taking players to Florida and the Dominican Republic. And he's done recruiting both at the high school and college level. Our youngest son, Connor Smith, is the vice president and the head of baseball operations for Smith Brothers Baseball Central. He's been coaching for 4 years full-time and 5 years part-time prior to that. Connor played 2 years of elite ball with the Oakville Royals and then 2 years with the Ontario Terriers down in Mississauga. He played 4 years with Gannon University, which is an NCAA Division II. He did an internship with the Erie Seawolves, which is the Detroit Tigers AA affiliate, working as an athletic trainer. He did an internship with the Erie Otters, working as an athletic trainer. He has his master's degree in athletic training, and he is an athletic therapist currently at the Sports Medicine Clinic in Aurelia. Then there's myself. I'm the president of Smith Brothers Baseball the vice president of Smith Brothers Baseball Central and the secretary treasurer for Central Ontario Reds. I have my bachelor in business management from Ryerson Polytechnical. My previous work experience prior to owning the baseball was always in accounting. I was CFO for the Canadian Payroll Association. I owned my own accounting firm. I was director of finance for Air Transat Holidays and manager of revenue accounting for Odyssey International. I've always been a big supporter of the boys and their baseball. And I was also the treasurer of many of their previous teams. This is just a picture of some of our coaching staff that we currently have on staff. Our goal is player development. So we use various tools like a hit track simulated system, coaches eye slow motion video feedback. We have an athletic monitoring system that tracks data. We do driveline weighted balls. This is all technical baseball stuff, but the key thing is we pride ourselves with our experienced coaching staff using all of these tools. This is just a picture of some of our players from the current year. We've done trips to the Dominican Republic as a humanitarian trip. So this is just some of the pictures to give you an idea. We took donations down and visited schools, and we played baseball down there, and we embraced the local culture. It was really an interesting trip for the boys. We've done spring training in Florida pre-COVID for 6 years. So this is some of the Florida pictures. So we have purchased the property at 1335 Floss Road 4 in Phelipston. It's 100 acres. This is a picture of the farmhouse, and there's some outbuildings at the back. And our plan for this venture is we're looking at a few phases. And the first phase is we've put in an application that should come forward to council on the October 6th meeting to convert the existing buildings there under a temporary occupancy permit to be able to convert one of them into batting cages and the other one into a gym. Phase 2 is to put an addition on to expand the baseball area as well as some office space. And phase 3 is to put a couple baseball diamonds on the property. This is a quick site plan of how things are going to look. So we've got farmhouse over here, some of the buildings here, and then you see the baseball diamonds. So we're very excited about this new venture and looking forward to see where it's going to take us. We now have the land, the space, and the resources to grow not only as a business, but as a baseball community. And we're looking forward to joining Springwater Township. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Ms. Barrow-Smith. Very good presentation. We're sorry we missed Kirby and some of the others, but look forward to meeting them. Can we have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor? If you could just take the presentation down, then I can see all the participants, please. Councillor Mott Chapman and Councillor Moore. I have one just before we get to the other councillors. You're in Clearview now. How long have you been in Clearview? And it's great that you're thinking you're moving to Springwater. Just wondered why you decided to do that.
We've been in Clearview for 10 years. We opened there in 2012, started building 2011. We were always looking for an opportunity to expand and have our own baseball diamonds. And yeah, we loved the property when we saw it. So we had put our building up for sale and sold it as at the end of June. And we've been operating outside for the summer, and we're looking forward to moving it to Springwater.
Okay. Councillors, questions, comments? Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you for the presentation. I know that there's a lot of kids that are really excited that it's coming to Springwater. Also, I know that we've run some summer camp programs with you as a partner before, and I look forward to having the same opportunity to offer that to kids who not necessarily elite athletes, but to have the opportunity to be involved is pretty incredible. So thank you for choosing Springwater, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, council? Okay, well, we'll look forward to the further reports on this coming forward. And so we have a mover and seconder. that the delegation from Ms. Kelly Barrow Smith regarding Smith Brothers Baseball, Central Ontario Reds business and plans for moving to Springwater be received. All those in favor? That is carried. Again, thank you for your presentation, Ms. Barrow Smith.
Thank you.
Next, we're moving on to 5.2 on the agenda, which is a deputation by Barry J. Morrison and Associates Limited regarding 727 Bayfield Street, plans to develop as a long-term care seniors campus. Barry Morrison, please, I see you on the screen there. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council for giving us this opportunity to talk to you. I am a planner. I act for the Remington Group, the owners of 727 Bayfield Street. It's located just beyond the built-up urban boundary of the city of Barrie, just north of the Georgian Mall. They've owned this property for approximately 2 decades. It's about 47 acres, and they are of the view that the development could proceed prior or pursuant to required approvals over the next 8 to 10 years for a significant and comprehensive seniors hub, including long-term care and hospice services. The lands are outside the settlement area, and they're within the urban separator Greenbelt as set out in the Springwater OP in the county of Simcoe OP. Servicing would be required from the city of Barrie. As you may be aware, Remington is one of Canada's oldest and strongest land development companies. It's built more than 30,000 homes over the past 60 years and is the current lead in the construction of the Markham City Centre. I'm joined today with Michael Spaziani. He's one of the GTA's leading preeminent architects and urban designers who has extensive experience in the design of seniors facilities. And I, of course, as a planner, have considerable experience in seniors accommodation throughout Toronto and Mississauga. Michael will outline a concept for you that Remington believes is achievable over with an initiation probably within the next 8 to 10 years after an extensive approval process. And in summary, it allows for a seniors campus comprising a 160-bed long-term care facility, 145-unit retirement home, 145-unit life lease ambulatory facility, 50-bed hospice, and a 20,000 square foot medical complex. Seniors community center open to the wider community is also envisaged. We appreciate council can't give a clear endorsement of this concept at this time without proper studies having been done and community participation being fully concluded, but it's going to be a long road in order to bring this to fruition, dealing with many other levels of government, including the county. However, if council generally feels that the project could be of interest to Springwater, then Remington is prepared to work with the town staff and find a way to bring this concept to fruition. About the only tangible thing that Remington would like to see in the near term would be some relief to the Greenbelt urban separator that is in place through section 24.4 of your plan, possibly through the current plan review process or possibly under some other process that the city staff may prefer. If the town is agreeable, it would be great, of course, to have some further recognition of the site for public service uses that would accommodate this use. So I'm going to turn this matter over to Michael Spaziani now, and he will give you the more interesting details of the concept, and he's going to share a screen with you.
Thank you, Barry. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, I can see it, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Then I'll walk you through Barry identified the location. This map just simply shows the location at the south end of the township. We've prepared a very preliminary idea about how the site could develop. And it's based on a growing need in all of Ontario for accommodation for seniors. And the trend right now is to provide a continuum of care from those that don't currently need care but could use services as they age, all the way through to long-term care facilities and even hospice facilities. So the idea is these days, and we're involved in a number of these sorts of communities that are trying to provide a full spectrum and continuum of that care. Excuse me, allergies. So this map on the drawing on the screen simply shows the total site area, and there's about 47 acres of land on this property. Approximately 28 acres of it, and that's the green area here, is noted as protected areas, environment protection, as well as groundwater recharge areas. So we haven't touched that. That's obviously subject to very careful consideration, but it's not necessary for the delivery of this concept. So we've demarcated it as a protected area, recharge area. We do work in Orangeville, and the whole concept of groundwater recharge is a very important initiative in these communities, and as I imagine it is in yours and in Simcoe County. So this shows you, I'm going to take you a little more detail now and show you that area of groundwater recharge and the general lay of the land, which is frontage on Bayfield Street, and a fairly limited frontage because most of the development lands are in behind. But the idea here was to try to create a bit of a presence on Bayfield for the many passing motorists heading up to the north. So it's a very important idea about recognizing and identifying the development. And I'll go into more detail about what that entails, but it's generally public functions that are attracted to the passing motorist who may not have immediate interests in the built form, which deals with a retirement home. Under A, Building A is a retirement home. Building B is a long-term care facility. The long-term care has about 185 suites in it. These are 4-story buildings, nothing greater than 4. Some are less than, some are only 2 stories. The retirement home just allows more independent living, and it has 145 units. And these buildings would communicate either through a bridge connection or a basement connection because there's synergy between the two uses. One could find that they start in the independent living in the retirement home and maybe through memory care issues have to move to a certain floor within this building, and then eventually may need greater care in the long-term care facility. And the idea is that you may have one spouse in the independent living while the other one is going through some health challenges. So it's meant to provide that continuity for families. The other buildings that are identified here are simply a life lease building, which is really an apartment form, again, only 4 stories, about 100 units in this building. And this is more of an independent living type of building. So this would be healthy adults plus 55 years of age and up, and they would not yet need the full facilities that are available in Building A and B. Building A and B will have dining facilities, will have all sorts of amenity facilities. That's how these are designed these days. We tend to design the retirement homes almost like 5-star hotels in terms of facilities and amenities, fitness, focus on health. These are the kinds of amenities that you'll find in this building. And that's why it's positioned in what I call the more public front of the building, because some of these functions could be hair salons, could be health facilities. They invite the public in. So there's a kind of an outreach component to this component of the site to the public. The site has a public road that would lead into it, and that creates frontage on all of these various blocks. And in the future, there would be loop roads that would carry through the site for safety and servicing through the site. There's future parts of the site that would be programmed for even further, if there's demand for further apartment form living. These are potential sites. Some of these sites actually also include bungalow type of living. So you actually start in an accessible bungalow type of unit, and then in a way you graduate to the services that are offered in a more of an apartment form, all of which is accessible to those needing wheelchairs. And it's meant to provide that continuity from independent living through to full end of care life, which is in the hospice here. This is a hospice building. It's showing 50 units. These will all be adjusted through market to understand the demand in the area. And its location here is strategic. It's close to Barrie, but it also will service Springwater with its primary function. So it's a very strategic in the way that it could serve a larger regional community as well. And that's the potential of these homes. It's hard to find sites that could have all of this type of use in one area. So it's an important idea, and this site would accommodate it. It also anticipates that there could be development at other parts, non-owned components of the site, and they could be integrated fully within the development so that it became a more complete community. And this may be more in the order of maybe retail functions or mixed-use functions that could support the passing traffic and the residents. The independent residents will want walking abilities throughout the site and walking paths, and even walking paths through the natural features of the site. It's an important idea, and it would be a very complete community in that regard. So the next slide is simply zooming in a bit to show you a little more of the detail of the buildings. And as I mentioned, there's 145 units in this four-story building, 180 beds in this particular building in long-term care, and about 100 units in the independent living building, the apartment building, and 50 units in the hospice. I'll go into this area a bit more. So it's meant to be designed as a very much an iconic feature for the community at large. We've identified here a welcome center, and you've seen visitor centers around the province and around the country, and these are meant to be orientation centers. So this could be a drop-in type of facility. I'll show you some imagery that we've created for it. Could be a gallery show. It could be music events. And it's attached to a kind of an outdoor pond and water fountain feature that kind of gives a sense of place and character as a gateway to Springwater. It seemed to be an appropriate symbolic kind of gesture, but this would be an amenity area that would tie in potentially to a restaurant feature here, as well as a pharmacy, some medical functions in this building, as well as a two-story community center. The community center would be clearly for Springwater residents, and it could have access to the groundwater recharge lands for some of the amenities associated with the community center. There'd be no hard development here, but there could be some play fields that are associated with this, and certainly walking paths, very important component of interconnecting all of these developments. I'll take you through some very early images. These are just meant to give you a sense of what the idea is. And I've got 4 views here, 5 views in fact, that are all from Bayfield, and they show, I'll walk you through in a little bit of detail about what each of these show. We'll start with image number 1, and it's taken from Bayfield looking into the site from the north. And I've blown these up. These are the locations of the views. So view 1 would be a view that just catches the corner of, say, the restaurant terrace that would be most proximate to the highway and the roadway. And it gives you a glimpse of the kind of water feature that would have fountains, active fountains, in summer. And in winter, this could take on a life of a kind of a skating facility. So this is the community function that we think could be of interest to the community at large, the public at large. In the distance, you'd see there's something I've called the welcome center. And in this view, we're looking straight into the site. This is the main courtyard that's right against Bayfield. This is the welcome center. It's a 2-level building, and it's meant to be a building that would have visitor orientation, some outdoor sitting, presentations on the upper level could be for cultural events, could be a gallery functions. It could be artwork that comes out of the seniors facility. These are the kinds of uses we bring to these communities, but it's a front window. It's the storefront, if you will, for the entire development. It's an orientation center to Springwater at large, and it'll be identified as a retirement community. This is the main retirement home, and it would have very visible frontage on the highway, on Bayfield, across the pond. So it's like a reflecting pond. So it's meant to give you a kind of sense of place and a sense of excitement about the activities that could be programmed here. These can be musical events, they could be fireworks events. There's a number of things that could be programmed for this space. And remember, there's a community center at the back left here, 2 stories. And this is where there'd be doctors' facilities, medical facilities, and potential for a restaurant, some retail that would support the entire function. View 3 is simply looking a little bit more closely into the site to look at some of the medical facilities in the corner of the restaurant. This would be the community center at this location at the back. These are all interconnected, and they could be connected as well to the retirement home beyond. But it gives you a sense of the active water features. These water features, sometimes the public will use them with children. They can have small remote control boats that would ply on this, and it's kind of a family outing idea that could be created here. This gives you a bit of a sense of the welcome center. It's just showing a fully glazed, if you will, a kind of empty shell, but it's meant to be a place where you could have community events and community programming in the form of gallery or arts and culture events, and a visitor center. And this is more of a broader view at the entrance driveway. So this is the public road that would lead into the development. It would be identified, and it would have the welcome center would be the kind of the welcoming building, if you will. So you'd see the potential for hopefully a very popular diner, would also be a kind of roadside attraction to attract the public in to learn about Springwater and to learn about the community. So this is an initial idea. We've used an imagery. The imagery we've used here is it's based on a building that we designed in the past 2 years. It just opened 2 years ago in Barrie on Yonge Street, the south end of Barrie on Yonge Street. So it gives you a sense of the kind of massing and the kind of design that we would introduce here. We would try to tailor this to a Springwater experience. These are examples simply of other visitor centers, and you can see they get quite elaborate and quite interesting. They could be the subject of almost a design competition within Springwater to try to create the kind of interesting building that would be that hallmark building at the right at the entranceway. These images show you, these are from various locations. They show you water features. The one in this location is in Quebec City. If you've ever been there, you would have seen this with the hotel in the background. This is Peterborough. Peterborough has a water feature that is an iconic kind of signature for Peterborough on Little Lake. These are in Guelph. Guelph has these active fountains in the winter that's used as a skating place. So it has year-round programming and functionality. And they have some fun with coloring and various things. So that pond in the front could become a real showcase for public events and displays that could be themed to Canada Day, various holidays throughout the season. So this gives you a bit of that sense of what we're trying to achieve with the water feature. And this gives you a bit of a sense. This is the building I mentioned in Barrie that's right on Yonge Street. So it's that type of building, and that's been very popular. It's virtually full now. And this gives you a sense of a different direction you could take with more of a traditional effect of building. So there's this is out in Cambridge, Langdon Hall, but it's a very traditional kind of approach to design. So these are variables that we would want to present to council. And you know, should the project go ahead, I think there's a process of finding the right fit and the right type of architecture that would suit this location and create some excitement in the community. And that completes my my short presentation of an idea. It's an idea that could happen in this location, and could present spring water with some well needed or very much needed facilities for an aging community. So thank you very much for allowing me to share this with you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for the presentation. Very comprehensive and thought-provoking. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral and Councillor Moore. And so I open it up to discussion, questions, comments. Councillor Hannah?
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Excellent presentation. Thank you for thinking of spring water. It's certainly a facility that we could use in spring water, Simcoe County. I realize you're talking 10 years out from now, but hopefully any deterrents or restrictions that currently exist will be resolved by then, and you can make this happen. So thank you.
Your comments, please. Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I appreciate the presentation. I believe there was a very brief one sometime back regarding the same piece there. I think there was some talk of it would help to alleviate some of the pressures on the RVH itself and some of our other hospitals by freeing up some much needed beds. I think too that given that one of the roadblocks has been the green belt, which came up recently, and we were basically, it was pointed out that that was a buffer zone created at the township level itself. And I'd like to just point out, I think that in all fairness, the Midhurst secondary plan coming on stream and basically redeveloping the whole complexion of Springwater South End lends itself to doing something along these lines and letting some of these developments move forward. So I'm very impressed, and I think it would be something that would certainly bode well for Springwater Township, and I thank you for the presentation as well.
Thank you. The comments, Council? Councillor Moore? You're still muted, Councillor Moore.
I was just asking, could you please take down the presentation?
Take it down, yes.
Thank you. I just would like to concur that it's an exciting project. Transitional type of living is what we're seeing most often. Even the south end of Barrie with Tollendale Village is very successful in the same sort of way, and I think it would be a great addition to Springwater if we had another long-term care center. So I fully support it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay, thank you again, gentlemen, for the presentation. And so we have the recommendation that the delegation from Barry Morrison regarding and Michael Spaziani regarding 727 Bayfield Street plans to develop long-term care seniors campus be received. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you again, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. Moving on to 5.3, Integrity Commissioner report regarding Mayor Allen, presented by Harold Elston, Integrity Commissioner. I now turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor Coughlin for this.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and I will ask Mr. Elston to begin his presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor, and good evening, councillors. By now, I know you've had a copy of my report. It's long, and I don't sort of plan on reading it to you. I thought the best I can do is just sort of give you a bit of an overview of the conclusions that I came to, and then see if I can answer any questions that you might have. So I'll start by saying it involved a lot of complicated law and complicated facts. And I know it's taken a lot of time to work through that, but it seemed to me to be something that really needed to be addressed. Every issue examined from both sides, so that you would have sort of a final and ultimate answer here. The first issue that I had to deal with was whether or not I even had the jurisdiction to reinvestigate, as the motion put it. I ended up looking at it as more of a continuation of the inquiry. And you'll see there was, I broke it down into two parts. I worked through the Municipal Act and the responsibilities of Integrity Commissioner, and as well as working through your code of conduct to see just exactly how these things are supposed to go. And I concluded that the previous report had not completely disposed of the issue. They had not come to an answer one way or another as to whether the code had been breached. So just on the way the Act and the code sets up, I felt that it wasn't complete. And also Mayor Allen, through his counsel, had presented me with some significant, substantial law on what we call res judicata, or sort of judging something that's already been judged. And so you'll see in the second part of the jurisdictional discussion, I worked my way through that, and I was satisfied that even if it was the kind of thing where that res judicata principle would apply, that because they hadn't fully disposed of the issue before them, there was no bar to proceeding. So that took some time and a lot of work through. And so, but I'm very comfortable in where I sort of arrived there. The second sort of major issue that I addressed, there was a concern that the complaint was perhaps politically motivated, that this is councillors against somebody else on council, but I dismissed that. I found no evidence of that. It's a political forum that you operate in, and so I did not find there was any improper motivation in the complaints. And you know, when we see what started this, the reports from the staff at the golf club, I think, you know, it was quite alarming, the initial sort of incident reports. And then the third sort of major finding was that on my assessment of all the evidence, and that it took some time, again, some very helpful submissions from the Mayor's Council, speaking to a lot of people, not hearing back from a lot of people. On balance, on the evidence, I found that the mayor had not breached the code of conduct, that there was just insufficient evidence for me to come to that conclusion. Generally, I think I really wanted to speak to the staff, and we tried over the course of many weeks to reach out. We had phone numbers and contacts for the 4 staff members, and we did not hear back from anybody. I put an FOI request into the police. It was there was no response to that. We had a couple of police officers' phone numbers. None of my calls were returned. And sadly, the Crown Counsel had passed away, so I wasn't able to speak with the Crown. So anyways, just a very difficult, I think, for everybody situation. I hope that I have come to the right decision on all 3 of these points. I feel comfortable that I have. I spent a lot of time thinking about this backwards and forwards. So that ultimately I've dismissed the complaints and found there to be no breach of the code of conduct. So I'm happy to try and answer your questions. We like to say the reports speak for themselves. I find I'm better at communicating my findings in the written form, but I'm I'm happy to try and answer any questions you might have. So thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Elston. I'll first ask for a mover and seconder to have this put on the floor, please. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Mal Chapman. And we will open the floor up to council for comments or questions for Mr. Elston. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Coghlan. To Mr. Elston, I just wanted to say thank you so much. I thought your report was fabulous. It answered all the questions and all my questions. And I agree with your result, and I just wanted to pass along my appreciation.
Thank you.
Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I just want to make the comment that I appreciate Mr. Elston's comment that it was not politically motivated. We received a complaint and felt it was our responsibility to pass it on to the Integrity Commissioner for their determination as to whether there was a violation and whether an investigation should even be completed. So that was how the word, and that's what was left up to them. And I also like to point out that there was no motivation by the staff, to my knowledge anyway, at the golf course. They were just simply trying to help and assist somebody to make sure they got home safely, and there was no problem. So I agree with what Councillor Moore had said, that you did what you could with the information you had available, and thus more could be done. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Hanna. Mayor Allen.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Coghlan. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Elston, for your thorough review and report. Although we did not agree on the jurisdictional matter of you completing your report, once you proceeded with the investigation, you did it in a thorough and impartial fashion, resulting in the correct conclusions of the truth. I believe we now need to move on with the remaining year of this term of council and accomplish all of the strategic initiatives we agreed on earlier this week as a council, which need to be finished to a certain stage of completion by October 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Councillor Cabral. You're muted, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Coghlan. I do thank Mr. Elston for the report. I believe that there was likely quite a bit of struggle, and from your comments, Mr. Elston, it certainly sounds like it was a difficult investigation to undertake. Certainly a bit of a perfect storm with the lack of response from certainly the OPP, which I must say I'm quite surprised with, considering that it was not necessarily judicial in nature, but certainly judicial in the process of reviewing everything. I can understand the outcome at the end too, and I know it's been a long time passing. I just had a couple of comments, and I wanted to refer to the report itself, in particular on page number 22. And I just want to allude to the fact that the staff that worked at the Vesper Valley Golf Course certainly didn't have any interest in what was transpiring or what was going on at the time, or with Mayor Allen, but it was apparently Mayor Allen's actions that led them to basically take note of what was going on. I'd also like to say that because some of the staff had indicated that they'd gone back to the room as well, that they may have been in a position to recognize intoxication, because they're working in an establishment that serves alcohol, and one of them indicated that they'd gone back to the look after tables. So I found that their statements, and I do thank you for including their statements in here, because I don't believe they were included in the Principal Integrities Report at all, yet they're salient to the entire process. What I found from them is that they did do their best to help Mayor Allen and resolve the matter at the time. Obviously, the matter seems to have gotten out of hand. I do feel that there may have been some reluctance on their part, seeing as I think most of them were students and whatnot, probably going to university, and that probably didn't want to get any involved any further for whatever their reasons might be, or just maybe unable to reach back out to you. I did want to make a comment with respect to what we might call credibility too, because there seemed to be a little bit more credibility going to the respondents from Mr. Allen, and I found it very strange on that, and I'm going to refer to page, I believe it's 27. And what I found strange here is that this particular witness stated throughout the day our foursome, nope, sorry, got to go up above that one. The first respondent indicated that alcohol was only available to be purchased. These are people that are riding with Mayor Allen. So the first respondent said that alcohol is only available to be purchased at the main concession area every 9 holes. Of course, they did say that they did not watch Mr. Allen like a hawk that day, but can recall him drinking potentially 1 drink by adding a prepackaged shot into a container of sparkling water. I was a little bit surprised, however, when I read witness number 2's statement there, where that particular witness says, throughout the day, our foursome met the baggage cart on 2 or 3 occasions around the golf course. And each time I offered to buy the individuals in our foursome a beer. However, Mr. Allen declined each time, noting that he was on a special diet, and as such, only wanted a soda water or passed without having anything at all. And I'm just saying that I could see how difficult it was for you, sir, taking statements that were written and not being able to verify their accuracy from the witnesses at the golf course. And of course, being able to reach back out to these particular witnesses and speak to them too. I'm just trying to illustrate that there's a bit of a relationship with these ones with respect to Mayor Allen, and with the other witnesses that were at the golf course itself. They really had no involvement or no interest in moving forward. But I want to thank you, sir, for taking the time to review everything and address it. And I must admit that your findings, based on what's in the report, I agree, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cabral. Are there any other additional comments or questions from council? Councillor Cabral, I was going to come back to you after I got to anybody else, but there's nobody else, so I'll come back to you again. So you have had the floor for a while here, so if you could just make sure that we do make it brief. Or muted is fine too. You can leave.
No, I wasn't sure if you were asking me to hold off. No, it was actually just Mr. Elston was kind enough to address the OPP question that I was going to have, whether or not they were spoken to. I was also very curious to know, sir, if you were in receipt of any files or any documentation of the investigation that was completed by Principles Integrity initially, because council as a whole, I believe, was given the impression that all those documents would be turned over to you as part of your ongoing investigation, sir. So that would be one question. My second question, sir, was whether there was any struggles in order to complete your investigation without those reports.
Thank you. Mr. Elston?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I did not receive the Principles Integrity file. I know that was part of council's request in the motion. And I can understand that. I mean, we have an obligation to keep information secret, is the word they use in the act. So I thought about it. I actually spoke with your counsel, Mr. McIntosh, and I felt that I would be able to talk to the people I needed to talk to, recreate the file without having to really sort of challenge Principles Integrity's position. And, I understand it. I would protect my files. I would not want to be turning them over. So, but it didn't turn out to be that much of an impediment. In fact, it allowed me to start with just sort of a bit of a blank slate. So, yeah, that sort of threw us a bit at the start.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Mr. Elston. I appreciate it. And I know it's been long and hard for our mayor. It's been long and hard on the council too. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Wonderful. And seeing no other comments or questions from council, I can go ahead and read the resolution. That the report from Harold Elston, Integrity Commissioner, regarding the complaints against Mayor Allen, dated September 8th, 2021, be received, and that the report be listed on the website. And Clerk Ainsworth, we do have a mover and seconder for that. Perfect. So all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I will pass the chair back to Mayor Allen.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. And thank you again, Mr. Elston.
Thank you, folks.
Next, we're moving on to item 6, question period, where members of the public are invited to ask questions of council or make comments. Questions are intended to solicit discussion on matters that are being reviewed in the specific agenda at hand. Clerk Ainsworth, have there been any questions submitted?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There have been no questions submitted for this evening's meeting.
Thank you. Next, we move on to minutes, which is 7.1. Could I have a mover and seconder to get the minutes on the floor, please? Councillor Moore and Councillor Ma Chapman. And we have minutes 1 through 4. Any questions or comments with respect to these minutes? The motion is that the minutes of council listed herein be approved as presented. Special meeting of council September 1, 2021. Minutes of the special meeting closed session of council September 1, 2021. Special meeting of council September 1, 2021. And the minutes of the regular meeting of council September 1, 2021. All those in favor? That is carried. Next, 7.3 is the minutes of boards, committees, and organizations. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Deputy Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Cabral. Items 1 and 2, any comments with respect to that? The recommendation is that the minutes of boards, committees, and other organizations listed herein be received as information. That being the minutes of the Elmville BIA meeting, June 17, 2021, and the minutes of the Community Policing Advisory Committee meeting, April 30, 2021. All those in favor? That is carried. There's no correspondence and information items. So we go on to 9.1, committee recommendations, starting with the approval recommendations of the Efficiency and Service Delivery Audit Ad Hoc Committee. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor? Deputy Mayor Coughlin and Councillor Moore, that the recommendation of the Efficiency and Service Delivery Audit Ad Hoc Committee contained in item 9.2 be approved as presented. Is there any discussion with respect to this? Seeing none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. 9.2, award of service delivery review. Can I have a mover and seconder for that, please? Oh, Clerk Ainsworth, you have your card up.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. That was taken care of in the previous motion, so this motion does not need to be voted on.
Thank you. So we're at the procurement bylaw, item 10 on the agenda. We have a presentation from Marilyn Brown. So I would ask Marilyn Brown to go forward with the presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. I've had the pleasure of working closely with Jazz and Shelley over the past few months to assist with the preparation of the updated bylaw. And they've asked me just to address you this evening to briefly summarize some of the key changes that we're putting forward in the proposed bylaw and some of the goals that I think we've achieved through those updates. So I'm just going to turn on my share screen here and show the presentation. Okay, so I hope everyone can see the screen.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you. So I'm Marilyn Brown. I'm legal counsel and partner with LXM Law, and I have done a lot of work in the area of procurement law and in particular with municipalities. Prior to joining my current firm, I was with the Procurement Law Office, which is another boutique law firm that specializes in public sector procurement. And before that, I was 10 years with the City of Toronto as their in-house legal counsel that worked with procurement. So a strong background in the area, and I have seen a lot of procurement bylaws and worked on a lot of procurement policies, procedures, and so on for municipalities. So that's just a brief background as to why I was engaged to assist on this matter. Some of the goals we had in terms of updating the bylaw were to streamline the document, streamline the bylaw, simplify the drafting and improve clarity, and primarily to ensure consistency with current laws, trade agreement obligations, judicially recommended best practices, and industry standards in municipal procurement in particular. In terms of the structure and the drafting of the bylaw, the intent was to simplify and create a streamlined bylaw that focuses primarily on governance and policy matters. So things like the governing principles, core roles and responsibilities, delegations of authority, and management of records and reporting requirements. The updated bylaw does continue to provide an overview of the methods of procurement that the township will use, but with less procedural content. And so we moved the procedural and the administrative details into a separate procedure manual that will be further developed and maintained to deal with the details of how you run the procurement and various procurement activities. We've also removed repetition, and we've strived to present the content in the updated bylaw in a clear, consolidated, and more succinct manner. So all of this is in line with what we're seeing across many municipalities that have been updating their bylaws in recent years, taking that approach of streamlining and focusing on the governing rules and supporting the bylaws by more detailed procedures to govern the administrative functions. There have been some significant developments in public procurement law since the township's existing bylaw was adopted. So in terms of case law and judicial decisions, we do continue to see a fair amount of litigation in the area of public procurement, with bidders challenging processes, accusations around unfair practices, conflicts of interest, favoritism, discrimination. So that continues to be a guiding force of the legal standards and what's coming out of those judicial decisions. Also a significant change since the time of your existing bylaws, a number of different trade agreements that have come into place that govern government procurement that apply to municipalities and broader public sector entities. So we've seen agreements that are interprovincial.
Ms. Brown, sorry to interrupt. You're breaking up in your audio and your speaking. So can you turn your camera off and just leave your audio on so that we can hopefully get clear reception of your presentation?
Absolutely. I'm sorry about that. 1 second here. Okay, I hope that's better. Let me know if it's not.
Thank you.
So in terms of the trade agreements, we've seen them at all levels of government with interprovincial, national, and international agreements that have all come into force over the last 5 years. And we are beginning to see bidders taking dispute and bringing legal challenges that relate to non-compliance with those trade agreements. So part of the goal here was to make sure that the updated bylaw aligns with the judicial decisions, the trade agreement rules, and legal standards that are also informed by recommendations related to audits and public inquiries. Quite recently was the Town of Collingwood judicial inquiry, which I'm sure you're aware of, that did focus on some procurement related matters and included some specific recommendations around municipal procurement and the role of council and the risk of politicizing the procurement process. In addition to legal standards, there's also been a number of shifts in terms of industry standards and general common practices in municipal procurement. So things like the use of technology, in particular e-bidding platforms. We're seeing an increase in cooperative purchasing initiatives and buying groups, move towards more centralization of procurement operations within an organization, as well as increased thresholds for public competitions and delegations of authority. So over the years, the value at which procurements tend to be open to public procurement and requiring council authority has gone up, in part just simple economics, and the value of a $25,000 contract 10 years ago is not the same as the value of those contracts today. So that's been the kind of things, the kind of movements we're seeing across the industry, and we're attempting to align the updated bylaw with current standards and common practices. So to summarize some of the key updates, what we've attempted to do in the proposed bylaw is to clarify the roles and responsibilities of council and staff, establish clear delegations of authority for procurement and contracting activities and decision-making. We have increased the value of contracts that require council approval in order to improve efficiency and also to align with recognized and judicially recommended best practices in municipal procurement. And we've increased the value of procurements requiring public competition, also to improve efficiency and to align with the trade agreement obligations that the township is subject to and with industry standards. So in the 10 years since the existing bylaw was adopted, there has been a lot of focus on depoliticizing municipal procurement to reduce legal risk in terms of exposure to challenges of political influence in the process, to improve efficiency by focusing attention on the governing rules and delegating authority for day-to-day operations, trying to remove bottlenecks in approval processes, and allocating resources to the higher value, higher risk procurement by simplifying the practices for the day-to-day standard purchases and lower value contracts. So that's all of what we've taken into account in doing the updates for the proposed bylaw and making these changes that I think reflect the current standards and practices that are out there. So that concludes the presentation of the main comments that I wanted to communicate, but I am happy to respond to questions that you may have, or also expand on any of the comments if you'd like me to.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. If you could take your presentation down, I think that'll open the screen and hopefully allow some greater reception of your voice. So can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Deputy Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Amour. So I open it up for questions, discussion, please. Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor. And I believe my question should be directed to Director of Finance. And I just to speak to a couple of comments that are in the report. Page 3C, it says best practice in municipal competitors. It says second paragraph down, it talks about the role of council as settled in the proposed procurement bylaw aims to avoid potential pitfalls of politicalization of procurement decisions, accusations of bias in procurement, decision-making, lack of clarity regardless of roles, responsibilities, and accountabilities that harm the township's procurement reputation. So I would like to know if there's ever been any of these things occurred in the last 7 years. I'm not aware of it, any of occurring on council, and I just can't understand why that comment's in there, I guess.
Director Radigan.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Hanna. That's definitely not a comment directed at this council by any means. That is definitely just an overall comment in terms of what we've seen taking place in some municipalities, such as the Township of Collingwood, where there was a fairly lengthy and expensive judicial inquiry which did in turn have some implications in terms of their procurement bylaws, and it did question some of the political aspects as well that may have influenced some of those decisions. So the idea behind that comment is just really an overview in general to ensure that the municipality doesn't bear any risk moving forward.
Thank you.
Follow on.
Thank you, Mayor. And so I don't have to keep bothering you. I do have a couple more questions for the director. Your comment about Collingwood, I don't believe that was to do with procurement. If I'm thinking of the same thing you were, that was to do with something else. However, the other thing I found interesting, I'm not sure I can support this, is the amount of increase on the approval authorities that in the budget, again, which is on the chart on page 3, where we're going from department heads that got $50,000 approval, now going to $100,000. The director of finance had nothing in the past, going from $100,000 to $250,000, and the same for the CAO. And then the CAO can go from $250,000 to $500,000. So my question is, what's the role of council if staff have the authority to make these type of expenditures? I'm probably reading this wrong, but that's how I interpret it. If staff have the authority to make these type of expenditures without coming before council. And I know a lot of these times things are in the budget. They still come before council. It gives us an opportunity to discuss them publicly. It reflects and supports our arguments for transparency. And we generally always approve things, but there are times we have questions and it goes back to staff. So, well, I agree with what Mrs. Brown, I think I heard her say, was that there's a need for some increase in the amounts. I just find going up to $500,000 to be excessive in my view.
Director Radigan.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Hannah. Definitely the limits are up for discussion, hence why staff are not making the recommendation that the bylaw be approved today. The idea behind those recommendations is truly that council does approve the limits in terms of the budget. The budget does provide details of capital as well as operating that does take place on a day-to-day basis. And we wouldn't preclude providing reports to council. The idea would be to provide quarterly reports for any values of over 50,000, whether it was an RFP and RFQ. The idea also behind those values is when staff do go out to a public competition, or even whether it is an invitational competition, the RFPs, RFQs, and RFTs, what they require are, we are required and we're bound by an agreement based on what is within those procurement requirements, that once we do go out to public or an invitational competition, it is somewhat out of our hands. We do need to follow the policies that we've written within those proposals. So for example, if we do go out for a request for tender, the idea is to approve based on the lowest bid. And unless there is any additional, unless there is a reason not to, we would be bound by the agreement to actually award that contract to the lowest bidder. And so that's where with council, we are coming to council as long as we do go over budget by $5,000. But initially council is already approving purchases based on the capital and operating budgets on an annual basis. And staff is recommending we come forward with anything that is over budget by $5,000. We are also recommending that staff provide quarterly report in terms of any award contracts that weren't previously disclosed in the last report.
Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make my last follow-up for now. So I guess my question is, if these are, and I agree with what you're saying from what I've read, but if this is the way it is, why are we increasing the amounts to what they are, as I think are pretty excessive, to that amount. When council is going to approve an RFP to go out, doesn't matter if it's 200,000 or $1 million, we know that it's a commitment that goes forward. But the way I read this, staff can go ahead and make these commitments if they have the spending authority as set out here without coming to council. Am I reading that incorrectly?
Director Radigan?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Hannah. Although staff would have those authorities, there's specific requirements within the bylaw that would require us to go out for an RFP or an RFQ, whether it's invitational or go out for a public competition. That ultimately is the best process in terms of a competitive process, in terms of an open and fair process. Council is definitely able to make adjustments or changes to those limits. Those are what are proposed based on our discussions with Marilyn and the extensive background that she does have. We've also communicated with other municipalities who currently are in the process of updating their bylaws as well. The majority of them we did find to be very outdated. Now, you just keep in mind, Council, that our bylaw is over 10 years old. So it's just the same value for service. What was received 10 years ago is not necessarily the same that you would receive today.
Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'm still a little bit ticked because I think, and I apologize if I misinterpreted what Councillor Hannah said, but I think he was asking about these increased limits, basically, that staff would be able to go ahead and have those expenditures. Director Radigan, you've said that staff could go out for an RFP or an RFQ, but we still don't know whether council has any role to play in that RFP or RFQ going out. And I think that's the question that Councillor Hannah was asking, and certainly that's what I thought he was asking, was whether or not a $200,000 expenditure, now that they have the higher limits, would that be something that would not come before council before it went out for tender or went out for RFQ or RFP?
Director Radigan.
First question.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Cabral. The idea is not for it never to come to council. Currently, the process is RFPs and RFQs come to council after the process has taken place and to request council approval. However, an RFP and RFQ specifically state the requirements that we as a township are obligated to award a contract to, whether it's based on your technical or whether it's based on price. What staff is recommending is that we come to council on a quarterly basis with an information report for all awarded items that are within budget. Anything that is not within budget would come to council. Anything that council wishes to specifically see would come to council as well.
Okay, I'm still struggling with that. It still sounds like you're going to come to council with RFPs and RFQs that have already gone out, and then you're saying that township is obliged to pay for one of them, and that's at the point where council's having their involvement for an expenditure of, say, $200,000 or $300,000, whether it's a budgeted item or not. So I'm still struggling with that. What I do like is checks, balances, the transparency of the expenditures that township makes, and most of all, the accountability. Because in the report, there is that statement that Councillor Hannah took exception to out of Collingwood, but I wouldn't mind taking you back a number of years to a multi-million-dollar debacle in Toronto, the Lisk affair, where they leased out hundreds of millions of dollars worth of computers, and council there didn't even know what was going on, and they had a big inquiry about it. So just as council may be able to influence something or have some bias towards it, I think we also have to ensure that that procurement policy that we do put in place also provides the checks and balances to make sure that the bias and the favoritism and that does not happen internally as well. So there's a couple of things there that I wanted to point out, but I'm still struggling with the RFPs and the amounts of money as well.
Director Radigan?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Cabral. I do want to provide further clarification. Anything in the amount of 15,000 to 100,000 would require an invitational quote, whether it be through a request for proposal or a request for quotation. Anything over 100,000 would require a request for tender or a request for proposal. Those are agreements that bound the municipality. The current process allows us to go to our request for proposal or tender based on what you see in our existing bylaw. But it's also based on approval that council has provided to staff in what was outlined within the budget. Staff then come back to council after the process has taken place, after the public competition bid has closed, and we provide a report to council in that sense, where council does provide their final approval. What we are requesting is, if it is within budget, it is a duplication of services. It's an inefficient way for a business to procure services in a fast and efficient manner, but also in an open and fair process. This would allow us to then proceed with projects much quicker, much sooner. It would be more efficient for staff and allow staff more time in actually proceeding with projects rather than the administrative aspects. Whereas we would still come back to council.
I understand exactly what you're saying now. That's the clarity that we needed. What you're saying now is that a $200,000 pre-approved budgetary expenditure is what you want to be able to submit for an RFQ or an RFP within that limit, and then bring that back to council for council's final approval. And I understand that now. Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
No, my questions were more specific to when it does come back to council. And we've had a few instances at our table where either we're not satisfied or there's been issue with the bidders. And I'm just curious if I can get more clarification on, because I'm of the mindset where there are instances or times where we can go back out to tender or not award with no penalty or risk to the corporation. And then there's other times where I'm told that we are bound to this. And I understand that being outside of budget would be one reason. If I could just have clarification on, I guess my first question does the same rules apply to RFPs, Qs, and Ts, or are they different in themselves, being one or the two over 100?
Director Radigan?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'd like to start, but I'd also like to have Mrs. Brown comment as well. She may have a better view on providing the actual difference between the three. The a request for proposal is largely based on the technical requirements. And so it's a 2-envelope process normally, where based on the technical requirements, they would have to meet a certain scoring, which is outlined within the report. And if they do meet that, we would then go on to open the second envelope, which would be the pricing. And then based on that, we would have to award based on their overall scoring. But the majority of the actual scoring is based on the technical requirements and not necessarily price. Price doesn't come into play until after. And we usually go for a request for proposal when staff doesn't entirely know what we want, let's say, and we want vendors to provide us with their ideas in that sense. So we may not have the technical expertise in-house, so we would go out for an RFP. Request for quotation is fairly similar to that as well. I don't have much experience with that, so that's why I'd like to have Ms. Brown speak to that. Request for tender is mainly when staff have a really good understanding of the technical requirements. We know what we want, and it is 100% based on price. You go with the lowest bidder, and there's nothing else. Usually when we come to something that's controversial, or if it's over budget, or if there's perhaps some other issues with a bidder, we would definitely come to council. We are required to come to council, and that's the idea of what the new procurement bylaw is proposing. We're also proposing that we come back to council if we're over budget by $5,000. And I'll turn it over to Marilyn, and hopefully she has a better explanation as well.
Ms. Brown?
Thank you, Director Radigan, through you, Mayor Allen, to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. I think that Director Radigan has done a good job of explaining the differences in the processes, and I think where they're similar is an obligation throughout any competitive process in public procurement to carry through the process as it's written in the document and to award the contract on the basis of the evaluation process that's outlined in that RFQ, RFT, RFP, whatever that may be. And so that's the role of an evaluation team to run that process and determine the winner. And once you've got a winner, there are very few valid, legally justifiable reasons not to proceed with the award. And one of those may be if it's over budget. The courts have recognized an ability to cancel a process where the bids have come in over what was budgeted. And as Director Radigan said, those would always come back to council. And so I think where we've built in the safeguards for council seeing things that are out of the ordinary. So the expenditure gets approved in the budget, staff then runs the process, and in the normal course, awards the contract to the winner. But if it's over budget by more than $5,000, if there's an irregularity in the process, if procedures haven't been followed clearly, if there's a bidder dispute, those are instances in which their staff would be coming back to council for you to make those important decisions about what happens next and what are the risks and benefits of proceeding or not proceeding. But in the regular course, it is a duplication to return to council simply to kind of rubber stamp the award of the contract that's already set out in the process and the documents that have been issued for the public competition. So when it's clearly within budget and everything has run smoothly, there's not that need to return to council for that approval. Rather, it would be in the way of an information report.
All
Thank you. And while I have Ms. Brown on, in your experience, is there ever, I want to say, weight given to the number when they say it's a competition, a public competition, and you get 2 bids or 3 bids, and you don't? Is there an opportunity to have that put in there so that you can go back out? I mean, in the trades, timings, everything, people book up their jobs at the beginning of the year, and if you go out and they're all booked up, it might look a little different later on. But I find often when we get them and it's only 3 people bidding, it's hard to know if you actually got what you're hoping for.
I understand what you're saying, and from a practical perspective, I think that that can be an issue. But unfortunately, from a legal perspective, the courts haven't really differentiated between a competitive process where you've got 2 or 3 bids and where you've got 5 or 6, because the obligations are owed to any of those bidders that have responded. So the obligations to the 2 or 3 bidders are the same, even if there is not a wider competition. So I think part of that goes into strategic planning around when those documents are issued and knowledge around timing of projects and vendor availability and so on. But unfortunately, it's not a justified reason for canceling a process and starting over because you're not satisfied with the number of responses that have come in. As long as those responses are valid bids that comply with what you've asked for, then they need to be treated the same way as if there were 10 or 20 bids.
Okay, Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'd like to be clear, I'm not suggesting staff would do anything inappropriate. I just echoing the fact that we have financial responsibilities as council for the tax dollars in Springwater Township. My point being is, and I appreciate the explanation from Director Radigan, but the way I understand it is, even if it's in the budget, we won't know what's happened until the RFP comes back. And that's not currently how it seems to work in my mind. We have open discussion, we're transparent. The taxpayers of Springwater get to hear, if they like, what's going on and how their tax dollars are being spent. But if the RFP is going out, and then it's been stated, once it goes out, we have an obligation then to follow through once we have an acceptable offer, if you like. I think that's putting the cart after the horse. So I think we need to do it the way we're doing it now, and that is for council to be part of the discussion and the approval for major expenditures. I would suggest that if we're going to go forward with this bylaw change, we have to take a look at the amounts that have been there on page 3. And I hope everybody's taken the opportunity to look at those amounts. They scared me when I saw them. So I can't support this the way it is at the bottom line. Thank you.
Director Radigan.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Hannah. I just wanted to provide clarification that the current process does come back to council after the fact. So that would not change. The current process, the way it operates is we do go out for RFPs and RFQs. And then once the process closes, we do come back to council for award of the contract. The only change would be is that we would be coming back to council with an information report and not a recommendation report on a quarterly basis to provide the details of what has been awarded on a quarterly basis. Just to speed up the process and provide further efficiencies, not only to staff, but to the vendors that are also waiting to hear.
And just did you have another point, Councillor Hannah?
No, thank you.
I'll go to Deputy Mayor Coughlin and then Councillor Cabral, but before I do, Director Radigan, so can you summarize for us what is the impediment and what's wrong with the current process?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Allen, to members of council. I don't believe there is anything currently wrong with the current process. But I do believe staff has been requested not only through the SDR, but to look for efficiencies. The current bylaw also requires updating every 5 years. It actually hasn't been updated in the last 10 to 11 years. I think it's prudent that staff look at it and try to find efficiencies and ensure we still are following processes. And that's why we did also reach out to Mrs. Brown to get her expertise and ensure that we are doing what is an industry standard and trying to comply and be more efficient and operate more like a public business, but at the same time be very transparent.
Well, I have to push the point. If there's nothing, you stated that there's nothing wrong with the current process, and you're looking for increased efficiencies. If there's nothing wrong with the current process, how will changing the dollars increase the efficiency? If we update the bylaw with the other aspects of it, but leave the dollar values the same, will that be more inefficient, or will that maintain the efficiencies that you say currently exist?
Through you, Mayor Allen, to members of council, the idea with the increases is to not have to come back to council with every award that is greater than $50,000. That's where the efficiencies come in, where it would allow us in-house to proceed with awarding vendors based on the requirements that have been outlined within the purchasing policy, as well as the RFPs and RFQs that we have set out. That is the idea behind the changes.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Coughlin, then Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Madeline. So I think I would just like to, I guess, put my 2 cents into that. I think it's just updating. It's just becoming with the times. I mean, if a staff member had a credit card with $100 spending limit, they wouldn't be able to fill up a tank of gas. So I think it's just catching up to where we're going. And the process is still the exact same. It's the dollar amount. So if council wants to drop the dollar amount back down so that there is more procurement coming across the table, then that's the discretion of council. But the process isn't changing. The process is the exact same. It's simply the dollar amount. And the higher the dollar amount, the less that's going to come across the table. But when it does come across our table, it will already be awarded. I mean, it will already be decided. So I think that maybe this means that at budget time, there is more discussion about, I know in our budget deliberations previously, we had always been told, well, it's going to come back to council. It'll come back to council. Well, if we up that, we need to be mindful of the fact that when we make a decision that, yes, that road work can go up to $300,000, then we won't see it again. So I think that that's where our mindset maybe needs to change. And I don't know if Councillor Cabral's comment is on this, but the other question that I had was, how much weight is given to local trades, and how is that being considered? Any different in this new bylaw, or is it the same?
Director Radigan.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Allen, to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. There is an actual statement within the new bylaw that there is no special treatment of local vendors. The idea is that we must ensure that the bid process is an open, fair, and transparent process across the board.
Okay, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I guess for me, and I understand budget time coming up again. I think that if we were to increase the levels for whatever reason, I mean, we just finished awarding one now, and that took all of a minute and a half. Yes, occasionally there's one that comes up and we have questions about it, and then eventually it moves on and gets awarded anyway because it's an RFP. However, when we're talking about these particular limits here, finding out quarterly, I don't think that's going to be adequate. And the reason I say that is, from my understanding, we have fairly robust accounting software that I don't think it would be too difficult at every council meeting, even for anything that was awarded based on the procurement policy, to have a report every council meeting. For ones that have been awarded, the data is already there, the information is already there to be able to provide it to council as a whole. I think quarterly is too long in between, because it could be several hundreds of thousands of dollars. Even though it's all below the threshold, when you add them all up, it could be a fairly substantial amount. And I think the residents are counting on us to be transparent, and counting on us to basically make sure that every dollar that's spent is spent in a good, meaningful manner, and stretching it as far as we can. And I understand that once the RFP comes back, that's part of the process there. But I don't know if raising the limits is the answer. I don't know if it's going to save that much time or stream that much. However, if we did, and we were going to move forward with it as the report indicates, I don't think that a quarterly report is adequate for council.
Dr. Radigan.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Cabral. I think that's the idea of this report, is to have those discussions, and if a monthly report would be more adequate, staff would be happy to oblige.
Okay, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So listening to all the comments, procurement for me is complicated. And we've had other projects brought forward that I didn't understand completely how we maybe didn't take the lowest bidder, but were encouraged to take the higher bidder, and the differences between the RFQs and RFPs and Ts, and adding on top of that layer this new authority. What I'd like to do is to defer this report. I would like some time to consider these amounts and I would just like to consider maybe reducing those, but maybe have a conversation offline with Director Radigan so I understand this just a little bit more. So I'd like to defer it if I could.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. And further to Councillor Moore's points, and I would be happy to second. I'm curious though if we could have it referred back to staff and have staff look into a separate threshold or an alternative threshold that might be more palatable to council, so that we can continue with the bylaw moving forward. And that way we're not time lapsing this decision, because if we can have maybe some lower thresholds presented to council, it might just work out a little bit better.
Director Radigan.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin and Councillor Moore. The report before you does not actually request your approval at today's meeting. It does request the bylaw to come back for the October 6th meeting, and this will allow you to have some additional time. I would be happy to take recommendations on offline or however you feel in terms of what you'd like to see come forward.
Okay, so we have a mover and seconder. Clerk Ainsworth, do you have the possible wording for that amendment?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Yes, for a referral, if that's what Councillor Moore would like to move forward with still.
I believe she does. Yes, that's what she was referring to, referral. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the wording would be that the motion now before council will be referred to staff for further options regarding award authority limits.
That's fine.
Councillor Cabral.
Thank you. I just would like to see a friendly amendment there that the quarterly be monthly, if that's possible, or
Yeah,
that might be something we can take up again later on.
In the and I don't want to limit the further comments, Clerk Ainsworth, to just limits, and people need more time to review it again now after this discussion and have communication with Director Radigan and make any suggestions. So let's word it such that it can incorporate dollar levels, reporting timeframes, and anything else. Director Radigan.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Cabral. I will just take that as direction, and I will change that to monthly coming forward to the October 6th meeting.
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you. And I did include the reporting timelines in this motion, so we can remove it. But what I added was so that the motion now before council be referred to staff for further options regarding award authority limits, reporting timelines, and to provide council with further opportunity for review.
Okay. All right, we have a mover and seconder. All right with that. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Ms. Brown and Director Radigan. Good discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to action reports, item 11. And we have action reports 11.2 through 11.5. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ma Chapman. Any questions, comments with respect to these or desire to pull any of them? Okay, we have a mover and seconder that the action reports 11.2 through 11.5 be received. That the recommendations contained therein be approved as presented. 11.2, proposed changes to OPP Detachment Board for Huronia West. 11.3, Phase 2 Development of Community Hub Hasty Track. 11.4 award of tender 221-12 RFP Stone Manor Phase 2 Park Construction. 11.5 ZB 221-09 Partridge for 1540 Walt Road. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to item 12.1. Item information reports. Can I have a mover and second to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Moore, Councillor Ma Chapman. Any comments, questions with respect to 1 through 3? I will make one on the building services activity reports for June and May. Very impressive numbers to the building services department. You've been busy getting caught up on permits, and that's very commendable. A lot of hard work there. And foregone holidays, as I read in the verbiage. Any other comments, council? It is moved. Oh, yes, Councillor Cabral.
Actually, Mayor Allen, I just wanted to thank you for that comment. I did notice it, and I appreciate the fact that you did bring it to our attention.
Thank you. May I, so I have a mover and seconder that the reports listed herein be received for information. Building Services Monthly Activity Report, May 221. The Activity Report, June 221 of the Bylaw Enforcement Services Monthly Activity Report for August 21. All those in favor? That is carried. Verbal reports, Director Spagnol, official plan update and economic development update, please. Oh, planner list, hello.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Director Spagnol is away from tonight's meeting, so I'll do the update. The official plan update, the township's consultants, WSP Group, are drafting the official plan policies, which will be out for review later this fall. That's really the only update at this point, and I have no update for economic development. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the Midhurst Development Update, General Manager Ramdale, can we hear from you about that, please?
Yes, good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mayor Allen, Deputy Mayor Coughlin, councillors. I shall begin with the utility campus again. The construction of the water treatment plant is progressing, and they're also working on the infrastructure works for the wastewater plant. The reports I have indicate that the overall construction is slightly over 10% complete. This is for the treatment plants. The construction of the effluent pipe is about to commence. They have awarded the contract for those works, and that contractor is working to secure the necessary approvals from MTO and the county to proceed with the work along the right-of-way. Overall, for these two facilities, the wastewater, the treatment plants, and the effluent pipe, they are targeting a completion date of September 2022. Moving on to the subdivision, the internal roads have been paved, and the contractor for the electrical and the gas works is mobilizing to site. Those are expected to commence shortly and continue through for the balance of the year. The sales office, the formal opening will be later this month, and the builders anticipate to commence sales around the first week of October this year. And that brings me to the end of this evening's update.
Thank you. Questions, council, of General Manager Ramdale? Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To the general manager, did we get a date for the ribbon cutting? I did see an email, and I thought we had dates to choose from, but I don't think I got a follow-up confirmation.
General Manager.
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Moore. There have been a number of dates that have been bounced around. At this point, the information I've seen is September 28th, but it has not been confirmed as of today, as of yet.
I think, Councillor Moore, we have a meeting on Friday for the Midhurst Secondary Plan with Geranium, and that'll be finalized at that date, I think.
Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, General Manager. COVID updates, CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick brief update this evening. So we continue to monitor the situation through our Township Emergency Community Control Group. All township facilities remain open to the public with the exception of our community halls. Happy to report that our Elmville Arena has reopened. It did reopen this past Saturday. From a vaccination standpoint, so if we look at Simcoe Muskoka as a whole, and we look at the eligible population, so 12 years of age and older, 83.3% have received a single dose, whereas 76.6% have received 2 doses. We turn our minds to Springwater. Again, eligible population 12 and over, 89.8% have received a single dose, whereas 83.9% have received 2 doses. And just lastly, from a case count perspective, Springwater has had 307 confirmed cases of COVID, which is an increase of 11 cases since my last update on September 1st. 298 of those have recovered. 1 is in hospital, 2 have passed. The others are recovering. And staff do continue to work on our vaccination policy and engage in discussions amongst our colleagues in the county. And that concludes my update, Mr. Mayor, for this evening.
Thank you, CEO Schmidt. We hear in the news about the vaccination passports, mixed information where it's needed. Has Simcoe District Health Unit made comment about upcoming vaccination passports for Simcoe County?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you just bear with me for a second here. I believe I may have provided some of that information in my last update. 1 second here.
I see in the news there are deadlines for some places in Ontario for next week. And if there's a process to be getting whatever app on your phone you need to have, I'm not aware of it and I want to be aware of it.
Yeah, so the update that I provided last meeting, Mayor Allen and members of council, was that the province did launch an enhanced vaccine certificate and verification app to help aid in stopping the spread of COVID. They are looking to require people to be fully vaccinated and provide proof of their vaccination status to access certain businesses and settings starting September 22nd. And some of these higher risk indoor public settings include restaurants and bars, but it excludes outdoor patios, as well as delivery and takeout. It includes nightclubs. It includes meeting and event spaces, such as banquet halls and conference and convention centers. It includes facilities used for sports and fitness activities and personal fitness training, such as gyms, fitness and recreational facilities, with the exception of youth recreational sport. Also includes sporting events, so Jays games and such, casinos, bingo halls and gaming establishments, concerts, music festivals, theaters, and cinemas. Those are some of the ones that have been outlined that I'm aware of. And I believe the province is working towards a date of October 22nd, to have the app up and running. So between September 22nd and October 22nd, there will be, these businesses will be somewhat under the gun, if you will, to try to ensure there's verification that individuals have been fully vaccinated. So there's going to be pressure on these businesses until that app comes out to hopefully make it a little easier on them.
Yeah. So carry the slips in your wallet until then, I gather. Yeah. Councillor Cabral and Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make mention that my understanding is you got to carry your slips right now, and they're supposed to verify that slip with a piece of ID. And that's how that's going to work till the app comes out.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. And I just wanted to make note or maybe comment. I've seen other municipalities offering their library services to print the passports for residents, should residents require. And I mean, when the app does become available, not all of our residents are going to have the ability to use an app. So I was curious if this could be discussed with library in order to provide this as a free service to the residents of Springwater to print their vaccine certificate should they require.
I'll start with CEO Schmidt, but I see CEO Delgado's on the call as well. So CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll defer that to our CEO Delgado to comment from the library perspective.
Oops. I'm sorry, I was not prepared to discuss today. So would you mind repeating the question? I was just dealing with a problem with my library catalog, actually.
No problem. Thank you, CEO Delgado. And my question was, has there been consideration from the board or from staff at the library to provide printing services to residents should they require free printing of their vaccine passport?
Yes, we have already, I've already said that we are going to print all vaccine passports for free. And that is common among most library CEOs across the province. We are doing that. At the moment, we have only had 3 people take us up on that. And one was actually before they implemented the vaccine passport. But anyone who comes in who needs a vaccine passport printed, we will print it for them for free.
Of course, you are already ahead of that. That's awesome. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Maud Chapman.
Thank you, Mary Allen, through to CEO Smith. Just wondering when we think that the community halls and services like that facilities will be reopening.
CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Maud Chapman. It has been a topic of discussion. The challenge that we're having right now is the primary focus was to try to get the Elmville Arena up and running and ensure that we had that service available. Obviously, from a youth perspective, trying to provide for that amenity as well as some seniors as well, because there's senior activities there. As for our community halls, we've had some requests. We haven't had a significant amount of requests for our community halls. In order to open those community halls, we will need to explore additional resources to help with the cleaning and monitoring of those facilities. Obviously, with COVID-19 protocols and the requirements to clean on a fairly frequent basis and monitor the facilities, we will need to take a look at that a little bit closer, and we'll do so over the next couple of coming month or so to ensure that we can try to get some of those open. Understanding, we're in a bit of an uncertain time too with the 4th wave of COVID and not understanding where is that really going to take us. Are we really in a position to want to open some of those community halls? If we're not getting a lot of requests, for now, I think the decision is that we'll hold the status quo until we get some more interest, if you will, in the opening of those community halls.
Thank you. Oh, follow on.
Thank you, Mary Allen. So if residents come to me with requests, I should refer them to township so you can monitor how many requests we get?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to 13.5 county updates. Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. I think that the most pressing issue would be the Carson Wilson Seedon. And I just wanted to thank Councillor Moore and Mayor Allen for working together. I think we were all receiving quite a few requests and petitions, and I think that we now have a plan to move forward with the county to provide communication on the roundabout and the portion of the roundabout, and to look for an interim solution to provide a safer passage through that area. And as for our county council meeting, aside from closed session items, the only thing would be that we did move forward to a workshop. We're going to be scheduling a workshop to discuss alternate sizes for bins, and at the same time address properties or locations that were not included in the bin drops. So for instance, our agricultural community or agricultural properties here in Springwater. And that would be it.
Councillor Maud Chapman.
Thank you, Mary Allen, to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. I did read the report on the new garbage schedule. And I know some areas are changing, just because I know what I'm reading. I wondered if better communication will come out before November 1st about different garbage day schedules.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Yes, so the calendar has just been pushed back out again. So that should be delivered, if not already, to most residents here shortly, which will indicate the new. Also, if we do get residents concerned, the app is the best way to make sure that we stay on top of things. It has all the information you could ever want in there. You can even put in the search bin to figure out where chicken bones go. So there it is. It made it all the way out to the 10th, so everybody else has to have it for sure. So I think that the communication will continue to roll out from the county, and I think they've been doing a great job so far. But if there is any questions or concerns from any residents, I think Mary Ellen and myself are happy to work with them at a county level. But pushing residents to the app is definitely the best way to make sure that we continue to move forward through this change.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 13.6 municipal updates. Any municipal updates, Council? Councillor Maud Chapman?
Thank you, Mary Ellen. I just want to talk about the Aunt Mills 50th anniversary that's coming up October 3rd. We don't have a next council meeting until after. So October 3rd between 1 and 3, the Aunt Mills is celebrating their 50th anniversary. They have artisan craft show at the Aunt Mills Pavilion. They have a new community garden. The pavilion has a paved floor, concrete floor now. Also, if anyone comes on that day and brings a food donation, they get a free pumpkin. And they're going to celebrate the 50th years, what Aunt Mills is about, the community hall, the pavilion, and the surroundings. So it'll be a great outing, and we just wish for good weather that day.
Thank you. Look forward to that. Anybody else? Oh, yeah, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I wasn't at the meeting, and it might be possible that CAO Delgado might be able to shed light, but my understanding is that Music in the Park by the Elmvale BIA has been reconstituted this year. So there's entertainment at the Gateway Parkette at Yonge Street and Queen there, where the old Petro Canada used to be. And if I'm reading this correctly, it'll run through till the 9th of October. And I certainly stand to be corrected by CEO Delgado if she has further information on that.
CEO Delgado, can you help us out with that, please?
Yes, it is running on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. I am not quite sure the date, so I will defer to Councillor Cabral. And this Saturday coming up is Matt Jones of the Straight Goods. And then they have different artists every week until the end. So hopefully the weather will be good for that as well. And it's good to see that they are back up and have that running, because we sorely missed it this summer.
Good. And the last day of the market is a week this Friday, is it? The 24th? Elmvale?
Maybe you should refer to CEO Delgado again.
Yeah, I apologize, Mayor Allen, but I know last year they ran a little bit longer, so I don't know whether or not that's come up again.
Okay. All right, we'll find that out. No other municipal updates? Okay, there's a notice of motion by Councillor Cabral. So turn it to you, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Appreciate that. I think the notice of motion, if council members have taken the time to read it, it's pretty straightforward. I think the history behind it will come out as it's being read, and I'm hopeful that council is supportive of the motion. We do have other buildings in Springwater Township that have been designated by name, and this would certainly be one that would have both history behind it and also the whole inception of the Barrie or the Elmvale and District Food Bank being established was part and partial to this individual. So I'll take my cue from Clerk Ainsworth then.
Before we do that, can we have a seconder for the motion, please? Councillor Ma Chapman. Any further discussion? Councillor Ma Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just want to say I totally support this, and I think it's a great recognition of Mr. Stone. He's done a lot within the township or the village of Elmville, and I think this is a good honor of him. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There's nobody more deserving of this award to be named than Mike. The work that he's done over the years, being a steadfast member of the food bank, a director, and a member of the Elmville Lions Club. The list goes on. Very deserving award. I support 100%. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we've all read this, so we will take the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Any other notices of motion?
Mayor Allen, if I might interject, I do apologize. I think it would be good to actually read the motion, because anybody who's watching and not having the agenda open before them might know Mike Stone, but still doesn't understand what's going on.
Okay.
Would that be possible? Or even if Clerk Ainsworth would like to read it, that works for me too.
No, I'll go ahead and read it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Allen.
So moved by Councillor Cabral and seconded, I'm sorry, I lost track who seconded it. Councillor Ma Chapman. Whereas in the late 1970s, the Elmville and District Food Bank was established by two local Lions Club members, Michael Stone and Don Hawken, and the local churches to assist families in need. And whereas as local business person and a Lions Club member, Michael Stone was a constant community advocate in assisting food bank clients and championing community donations of non-perishable food items and cash. And whereas in 2016, the Elmville and District Food Bank incorporated as a nonprofit entity, and Michael Stone became the chair of the board of directors. And whereas on February 6, 2021, Michael Stone, on behalf of the board of directors, signed the lease with the Township of Springwater for the new building at 62 Yonge Street North, Elmville. And whereas on September 15, 2021, the Elmville and District Food Bank will be hosting its annual general meeting. And at that time, Michael Stone will be stepping down as the chair and leaving the board after over 40 years of service. And whereas to honor Mr. Stone's commitment to his community, the Board of Directors of the Elmville and District Food Bank is requesting that the township consider naming the new building at 62 Yonge Street North, Elmville, the Michael Stone Building, as a lasting tribute. Be it therefore resolved that the Council of the Township of Springwater hereby name the Elmville and District Food Bank building located at 62 Yonge Street North as the Michael Stone Building. Again, all those in favor?
Yep. Thank you, Mayor Allen. Appreciate that.
Thank you for bringing it forward. That is carried. Item 16, items for future consideration. Are there any items for future consideration? Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just 1 second. So my IFC for today is to request that a staff report be prepared and forwarded to council to include potential options, including costing and timelines to construct a parking area at the Carson Road and Ann Street trailhead, and that this report be prepared in advance of the 2022 budget to ensure consideration of the project can take place during the budget process. So the reason I'm bringing this up now, and I know that we have spoken about this in the past, bylaw brought it forward to council because of concerns. There was the snowmobiling club and their groomer brought it to council because of concerns in the wintertime. And what I'm noticing more recently is the increased parking because of the sales center that is going up at the same location. There are construction vehicles parking up and down the road, and the folks that are using the trail are parking on Ann Street and then walking across Carson Road to get to the trailhead. There's cars everywhere. So what I'm proposing is that we ask staff to consider pushing back the trees to make a parking area. And before I get ahead of myself just a little bit, I know that the CAO had spoke to the developer about allowing residents to use their parking lot. But what I'm foreseeing happening is that parking lot being full. So the sales center will be open 7 days a week, and later hours, there will be a lot of cars there. The parking lot is actually not right next to the trail. So I'm not sure it would be really inviting, or that people would consider that that's an appropriate place to park for them. So I'm hoping that staff can bring something back to us relatively soon. Sorry.
So Councillor Moore, you say pushing back the trees. In fact, you mean cutting the trees, don't you?
I do.
I haven't had much success pushing trees.
Pushing them back with equipment, very big equipment.
In other words, knocking them over.
Yes, that too. Thank you.
Councillor Ritchie?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just to, I support what Councillor Moore is doing, but I think in regards to trees, it's a matter of thinning them out and trimming them up, not eradicating all of them. So I just want to make that as a statement, and that can be done. And I agree. I've looked at that. I'd also like to add, if it's if Councillor Moore would agree, to include the park at Ora Lake as well too, because we've had a lot of parking problems there. We talked about it, and that'd be nice if they could do the same thing before budget. What are we looking at here in order to accommodate this? Because it's a problem, just like the one there Councillor Moore is bringing up. Bylaw can only do so much. These are two areas that we could do and could move forward with it. So I'm asking if that could be included, Councillor Moore.
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. That item should be dealt with separately from this item for future consideration. And I do believe that the park at Ora Lake has been brought up by council previously. So maybe staff might have an update to that project.
All right.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you. It's just to reiterate what Clerk Ainsworth said. We just have a delegation from a resident regarding the parking at Ora Lake, and that has been referred to staff. So that would already be coming forward back to council.
Thank you. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'm just wondering if it might be worthwhile, since there's a piece of property adjacent to that area that another developer holds, but might not be accessing, if there might be some kind of reach out to that developer to see if maybe a temporary parking lot might be placed there. My only concern is putting in a parking lot is that we're going to end up attracting more people to that area. And I think we have to keep in mind that, in fact, it is Springwater Township right of way. And as these houses continue to be built and these other developments take form and take shape, there's going to be a lot of vehicles moving around there. And, we might find that we need that right of way down the road. So just something to keep in mind. Hopefully staff can work around that and still accommodate parking facility. But keeping in mind that I'm kind of using the word temporary, but who knows how long that might be.
Right. Okay, well, we need a seconder to get this item for future consideration on the floor. Councillor Ma Chapman. It's worth looking into, and it would be coming forward as a report to staff. So all those in favor with respect to this? That is carried. Any other IFCs? Councillor Ritchie, yours will be dealt with in the process that we just described.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, moving on to bylaws. Can I have a mover and seconder for approval of the bylaws, please? Councillor Cabral, Councillor Moore, that the bylaw listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk, 2021-85 Hasty Track Road widening dedication to County of Simcoe and the Ministry of Transportation, 2021-86 alternative voting methods, 2022 municipal and school board elections, and 5000-339 ZB 2021-009 Reed Partridge. All those in favor? That is carried. Mover and seconder for confirmatory bylaw, please. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ma Chapman, that the bylaw 2021-87 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on September 15, 2021, listed herein, be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? That is carried. And an adjournment, mover and seconder, please. Councillor Moore, Councillor Cabral, that the regular meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 8:50 p.m. to meet again in the regular meeting on October 6, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Make sure everybody votes by Monday.
Yep.
And have a good weekend. It's supposed to be sunny and a nice fall weekend. And take care of yourself in Newfoundland there, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Have fun.
Headed to the right.
Thank you.
Kiss the cod.